If you enjoy truthful and heartfelt conversations to inspire you to become a better version of yourself, empowering stories will help you. Hello, Kate. Thank you very much for being in the program. How are you today?
Hi, Anna. I'm very well, and thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to chat with you today.
It's such a pleasure to have Kate with us from the future, because for her it's so much later than it is here. She's in the future somewhere in Australia. Kate is a success and empowerment coach. She's an author and an author mentor as well. The end point of her practice, as you can read on LinkedIn, is to empower her clients to define, design, and achieve their own version of success. I absolutely love that, Kate, because this is not about making a lot of money, get in the air, get famous. Is get your success whatever way you understand it, but first define it. I absolutely love that. But the best of all is at the beginning. She's passionate about what she does. So that's 99% of success, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Yeah, for sure.
So tell us more about empowerment, Kate, because we're everything about empowerment.
Beautiful.
Can we all get there? Can we all get empowered? Can we all get our dreams? Tell us.
Absolutely. Well, for me, as you mentioned, it's really about, I love to share the idea of success metrics with my clients. So it's really about, we get to choose what our success looks like, feels like, sounds like, and I think there's this epidemic of burnout that I see, and I must put my hand up and say that was me a number of years ago. And what I really think is at the heart of burnout is that we're striving for someone else's version of success. So we're working really hard, we're doing all the things, and we just don't get the return on investment of our time and energy because it's not our version. So for me, empowerment is about creating a pathway to success that feels like your version of it. Because if we try to embody other people's versions, and there's these really interesting statistics that say that there are a lot of millionaires who are depressed. And yet if you ask anyone in the street, would you like to be a millionaire? Most people will say, absolutely. But the reality is, it's not just about that end result. So it's more about how do you get there and what are you doing along the way that brings you joy and that helps you to feel in alignment with your true purpose. And that to me is what success is all about.
Yeah. Many times, Kate, I thought, why is it that so many artists get into drugs and then they die from overdose when they have the fame, the money, they are artists performing their art, they are sharing. And the same with millionaires, like that German guy who committed suicide because he lost a few billion, even though he still have billion. Billion like 2, but he had lost 4. But still, 2 billion is 2,000 millions. You will never spend all that. And on the other side, is like that's vilifying money and success in the perception of fame. So I think that there's this current or this thought in the world that if you're a millionaire or you're a billionaire or you're successful on a stage, then you better get away from it because people commit suicide and they are not happy. But we can get it all, can't we?
Absolutely. I think it's about having a really strong sense of who you are, no matter whether you are the millionaire or whether you're the struggling artist or the successful one. It's really about maintaining that inner integrity and that sense of self, which allows you to enjoy the rewards of all of your hard work when you get there by those objective measures of success. But I think if you feel as though you have to sell out or compromise your sense of self in order to get there, that can feel really disconnecting, and the success, whatever it is, doesn't feel like it's really yours.
Yeah, and this sense of self, how can we be sure that we are living our own self, that we're living our life instead of our mothers, our fathers, our families, community? How can we discern it?
I think that's a very good question, and it's a hard one to answer. But I think it's really about taking in the clues that our bodies give us that are really easy to ignore. So I'll give you an example. So before I had my business, I was an academic for 10 years and I worked in the School of Psychology, and I had ticked off a lot of things on my list. So I had done my studies and I had achieved a tenured position, and then I got a promotion. And so I was kind of ticking off the list, but every day I went to work and I had a headache. And what I would do is I would either ignore that headache or I would take a paracetamol and get on with it. But that headache was actually my body saying to me, this isn't right anymore. And when the headaches didn't go away, but they also didn't get my attention well enough, I started getting other physical ailments. And it wasn't until some other things happened in my life that really got my attention that I stopped and went, you know what? I have gone so far from what feels like my path, but I've just ignored all those little signs. So I think it's recognizing the clues that come from our bodies, our emotions, and also our thoughts, of course, but not just relying on those logical, rational criteria to make decisions. But and one of the really powerful questions that we can ask ourselves is not just what do you think about this, but what do you feel about this? You know, when you consider a decision that you need to make, how does that feel in your body? You know, what are the clues that you get from that little micro feeling that you could easily ignore, but what happens if you tune into it? And there's some real wisdom there, I believe.
The wisdom of our body.
Yeah.
So we need to stop. We need to stop and think.
Yeah. And feel. Yeah. Allow ourselves to really, tune into, you know, that sense of, because there's often, I don't know about you, Anna, but when I stopped and got very real with myself, when I was pulling myself out of the burnout that I'd gotten myself into, and I reflected on, you know, how did I get there? Because you don't get there in a moment or a week or a month or even a year. You know, it builds up over time. And when I looked back, I realized that almost without exception, the decisions that I had made that I had come to regret at the time felt wrong to me, but they were logical or rational or kind of more defensible. You know, it's what someone else would do or what someone else would recommend. Or so it was really that sense of when I'd gone away from that inner wisdom and relied on external sources of verification for my decisions, almost without exception, I regretted them afterwards. And so that realization was like, okay, you need to not just focus on what you think is right and also not what you think other people think is right, but really tune in, ask yourself what feels right for me in this moment.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. The first time that I left my job, I had been 10 years. I was top of the game and I left it to go into something corporate again. But that was more in line with the family that I was having at the moment. I had a little kid at that moment. And I remember the comments of other people, but are you crazy? You're going to open these and you don't know anything about. And I felt so embarrassed that I stopped sharing with people that I had sweet jobs. But then 10 years later, I left the second job. I left my career completely to go into another one. And then I said nothing to anybody. So I relate to that shame and embarrassment. And it took me years to be able to openly say, I'm doing whatever the hell I want to do. And I feel good.
It takes courage and it takes, I think it takes some work, you know, and getting that real sense of clarity about, no, this is what's important to me and this is what's right for me right now, regardless of what other people think about it.
Yeah, and it takes also, I suppose that would be your experience as well, to change the circle of friends and the people that you live with.
Absolutely, yeah. And it is really confronting, when you've done something for a long time. I remember sooner after I left my career in academia, we were traveling overseas for the first time since I'd left my job. And, when you fill in the entry card and you've got to put down your profession, and I was genuinely going, I don't know what to say, because I had started my own business and I was doing coaching and counseling and training and, all these, and I'm like, I can't, that's not a thing. And so I must admit, I sort of cheated and I went academic because it felt familiar. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's a silly example, but it's just a sense of, it can be hard to break free from what is familiar, even when we know it's not working for us anymore.
In your experience, the people that you have consulted with and that have gone through you and you've seen their paths, is there anybody who regretted to become a black sheep?
Honestly, no. I think there are times in that journey when there's doubt, there's that kind of sense of, when you're maybe halfway across the river and it's too far to go back and you're not quite where you want to go, that can feel really unsteady and wobbly. And certainly that has been my experience as well, when you feel like I've come too far, I can't stop now, but I haven't got where I want to be, so it feels scary. But without exception, I honestly can't think of anyone that has gone, I've changed my mind. Like, I'm just going to go back to how it was before. It's something that you can't really undo once you realize that there's a different path for you, and it's about finding a way to navigate it in a way that aligns with, your hopes and dreams and resources as well, because sometimes that can be the scariest thing, is not having the stability and the consistency, particularly if you've come from, as you did, a corporate role, which is, every week or every month the paycheck hits the bank account. That's a tough thing to let go of.
Yeah, I suppose. What about spirituality? Is that something that you take into consideration, the whisper of your soul, if you will, or of some higher power talking into your ear or feeling it into your heart? How do you approach that, if you do?
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting because my background is in psychology, which, is a scientific discipline. And coming from academia, it was very much about, you need evidence, before you can believe something, or and so that sense of the possibility of, spiritual guidance or even inner wisdom, inner knowing, that wasn't really a thing for me in terms of my career. But someone once said to me that starting your own business is like the Olympics of personal development, and I believe that is true. And certainly for me, I've explored lots of different things and read some amazing books, and really come to appreciate that, like I said, when I regretted those decisions, it was discarding that sense of other ways of knowing, which, whether it, whatever name you give it, do seem to have an otherworldly kind of essence to them. So that's certainly becoming much more apparent in my daily work and how I decide things and feel into things. I'm certainly open to other forms of knowing that I wasn't before.
Yeah. I think it's like a punch in the face for the ego, which, in my opinion, we shouldn't condemn, because the ego is what keeps us in this 3D world. We cannot be floating around and I need from prana. Yeah, well, maybe somebody can do that, but in general, we still need to go to the shop and give somebody, our credit card, not prana. So we need the ego. We need the ego to go through the practicalities of getting our soul's purpose. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely. And I think, the ego gets a bit of a bad rap, but essentially, it's just trying to keep us safe, right? So I think we need to appreciate its intention, even if sometimes the outcomes aren't exactly what we would like them to be.
we can make it work for our own sake rather than against us.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You were mentioning books there, and I know you've written one.
I
Maybe
have.
you share with the audience what that book is about. Why do you write it? What do you expect to get? Who was
Sure.
behind it? Because
Yeah.
many people write books, right? And
Yeah.
that's it. You just go to your computer, punch words, and go to Lulu, Amazon, or a bookstore or whatever. You get the book out. But what impelled you to write this one?
Sure. Well, it's right here, and I'll show you. It's called "Why Being Good Can Be Bad for You." How to get clarity, confidence, and courage to step out of stuckness. And the reason that I wrote this book was there were probably a couple actually, and one of them was that a lot of my clients shared some attributes which I also shared. So almost without exception, my clients have been mid-career professionals who are very successful in whatever it is that they do. And they're very accomplished and they're very clever and they're very well respected. So they've got this kind of external mirage of success as we commonly would understand it. And yet they suffer from imposter syndrome, and they feel stuck with perfectionism, and there's this self-doubt and this sense of, I don't really think I'm doing very well, and if people knew the real me, they wouldn't think so either. And so working with those clients, I would share with them stories from my own experience, and they would really resonate. And I was like, okay, so A, it's not just me, and B, it's not just, well, that probably means it's not just them either. And so I really felt that because part of my mission is really around enhancing the well-being of as many people as possible. And I see, as I said, I think there's a lot of burnout, which comes from this misalignment between how we define success. But it's also this sense of feeling like no matter what we do, it's not enough and it's not good enough. And therefore, because we strive for perfection, which is a myth, we're constantly feeling like we fail. Because I like to consider myself a recovering perfectionist, like I'm in recovery. I haven't quite managed to shake it off. But the thing about perfectionism is it's very black and white. Either everything is perfect or it's terrible. Like there's not a lot of room for it's pretty good, but it's not as good as it could be. Like it's either great or it's terrible, and that's it. So when I realized that my story could actually resonate with my clients, I thought, well, I wonder if it resonates more broadly than that. And so I decided to write my book. And the really interesting thing that I found, which I hadn't anticipated, was how healing that process was for me. So when I re-examined my story through the lens of how can I use my story to help my reader, it really made me think about it in a different way. And in doing so, it helped me to reconcile some things that had felt really burdensome and really traumatic. It helped me to make peace with other things and find gratitude for things that had felt really hard before. And it also forced me to ask questions and get clarity about some things that I thought I knew, but when I actually, because I was like, well, I've got to put it, it's got to be accurate if it's going in my book. And so I, sort of fact checked my own memory with my mum, and she was like, no, that was not how things were. So that also helped me to heal from some things that had felt really difficult from, back when I was a much younger person. So yeah, it was an interesting process, and I really found that the process helped me and the product helps others. So it's this beautiful kind of, it's my offering to the world. And the bonus was that it helped me to heal while I wrote it.
Yeah. So you wrote it for you, and now you share your vulnerability and your journey with others, which is
absolutely, yeah,
which is beautiful, and it's very courageous as well, Kate, because you're just full front naked.
Yes,
And
very much
to become to the conclusion that it's safe to be me.
Yeah.
Wow, that's naked power, isn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, it is. And it's so interesting because when I was writing it, I remember this so vividly. It was a Friday evening and I was probably about 98% finished of the first draft. Like I was so close. I really just had one thing that I needed to finish. And I stopped writing because it was dinner time and I went and spent some time with the kids. And I was spending some time with my daughter and we were watching our little guilty pleasure. We were watching Glee at the time. And I wasn't even consciously thinking about my book. I really wasn't. I was just kind of zoning out, watching a show that I didn't need to think about. And I experienced the first and hopefully the last panic attack that I've ever had. And it was this unbelievable feeling of I was paralyzed. Like I really felt like I just couldn't even move and I felt hot and clammy and it was just this real sense of overwhelming panic. And on reflection, I realized it was kind of my realization that this is it. It's going to be out there, you know, and I really needed to sort of break through that last little bit of resistance. So it was a really interesting thing that I went, okay, this is sort of my body telling me this is a big deal, you know, like, are you sure you're going to do this? But once I'd kind of worked through that, and it also helped me to see the story that I was trying not to tell that actually was the missing piece of my book that I did need to share. But I think I just needed to work through that last kind of layer of resistance in order to be ready to share it.
Wow, beautiful. It's funny because only yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine and I was telling her something about some experience and I was shaking. And she said, when you go through the realization that something is to be changed, but truly embraced, when your body shakes, that's fantastic because that's trapped energy that was inside of you, overall in your joints, but it's trapped inside of you. And when you release it, the energy trapped in the body physically is released as well. Some people call this perturbation. Perturbation would be the fact that leads you to get there. Like writing the book and sharing things. Is it the last bit that you didn't, that you were resistant because it was part of you. It was part of your identity. And what if I release this? That's not me, but it feels so familiar.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it really was interesting. And the other thing was that the bit that I hadn't yet written was the only bit that I can honestly say I had writer's block around. Like it was a chapter on togetherness, which is, because in the book I describe a process, which is the astute model. And, you know, it's an acronym and one of the T's stands for togetherness. And it's really about taking strength from connection and finding your people and surrounding yourself with them. And at first glance, it should have been the easiest chapter to write because it's so obvious, you know, like there's no kind of, I don't think anyone's going to doubt if you say that one of the ways to step out of stuckness is to surround yourself with good people. So it was this real sense of, why is this so hard for me? It should be the easiest one. And I was coming at it from all different angles and I really just couldn't find the right story to share. And then when I had experienced that panic attack and the shaking and the paralysis and all the rest of it, it kind of dropped in and I went, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that's the story that I've been trying so hard not to tell. But it needed to get my attention, and it did, and it's in the book.
So go there and buy it. Yeah. Sometimes it could be the people that is in your life and you say, I cannot release this person because, but then the best thing for us is to let them go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Even though everything in the manual says you owe this to this person,
Mm,
right?
mm,
I think that many people can relate to this, Kate.
mm,
It could take the shape of a father, a mother, a partner, a sister, a brother.
It's interesting because my husband chose not to read the book until it was like printed and finished. He's like, I want to read it like the first time. Whereas my kids, because they are in the book, I gave them the option of reading it beforehand, just in case there was anything that they felt uncomfortable with. I didn't want them to feel embarrassed or anything. So they had seen it. So when my husband read it, and by this stage it's out in the world and people have bought it, and people I've never met before and all, and my husband was reading it, and I was so anxious because I wanted his opinion. And he's like, why are you so worried? He goes, of course I'm going to love it, because, but no, like, I feel really anxious. Can you please tell me what you think of it? Because it really matters to me. And so that kind of showed me, even though I've done all the work and I'm, releasing the outcome and all of that, it's still a really vulnerable thing, even to someone who loves me dearly. And I have no doubt, like, he was always going to support me. But yeah, even then I was like, okay, so I'm not quite as evolved as I'd like to be, because I still cared about what the people closest to me thought.
Yeah, and that's very brave as well, to be there, be a therapist, be a consultant, and still say, I am human as well, and I need to figure things out and work through them.
Exactly.
Because sometimes we go to some guru and they give this impression of, I know it all, and just copy what I do exactly the way I do, and one size doesn't fit all. And I mean, you still pee. You're human, and you can't have it all figured out, or you would have ascended to heavens already.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Well, the book leaves you in no doubt of my humanness. There's lots of examples of me making mistakes, but also I wanted to model that the idea is to learn from them, and to really ask what's the lesson, and grow from them, for sure.
Yeah, what I feel, Kate, is that that's a very feminine approach to things. Is I'm learning, I'm maybe one step ahead of you in this area, maybe you're one step ahead of you in that one. We can share together and we can grow together. It doesn't mean that I'm up here like on a podium looking down at you. Poor bastard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I think this whole concept of vulnerability and authenticity is so powerful in bringing people together, because it recognizes, it allows us to recognize our shared humanity, and that, yeah, I may have figured something out, but you've figured something else out, and together we can grow and learn together.
Yeah, and I suppose that it could take away some of the stigma of going to a psychologist or a coach or a psychiatrist or whatever mental help from somebody, because it's, hey, me as a patient or as a client, I'm going to add something to my consultant that she or he can apply to the next person, because it's going to be an exchange rather than poor me, fix me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, it is definitely a two-way street. I have worked with a coach for myself over the years, and my clients benefit from that because I've done the work, but also my clients teach me too. It's about being really open to, what can this person teach me in this moment that, I haven't learned before. And, it's definitely an exchange.
Yeah, sure. That empowers them. It's like,
of course, yeah.
Oh, I'm very fucked here, but still, I'm giving her some clues. I'm giving her some clues for the next person, so I'm adding value to other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. New approach, I really like it. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Kate, when people want to contact you, where do we send them to?
Sure. So I have a website, and it's just my name, so www.katewitteveen.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a business page, which is on Facebook, Astute Coaching. And also my author mentoring is Wise Old Owl Publications. So I'm everywhere. I'm all over the place. I'm easy to find.
And she does answer, even if she doesn't know you, because her heart is so big. Any place that she can add value to, she would say yes. So
yeah, thank you.
Very approachable. That's what genius do.
Oh, thanks. Very kind.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. Anything else you would like to say to our audience?
I don't think. Thank you so much. It's been so fun chatting with you. I've had a really great time. So thank you for the invitation. And yeah, hopefully we can chat again soon.
Oh, for sure. You're invited. This is open for you.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Beautiful.
Thank
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.